Hey everybody, so I got another good video for you guys, and this time we're going to talk about Meta. We're going to talk about the forecasted earnings that they did give us guidance on, and we're also going to talk about the current numbers we have to work with. But before we get into all of that, if you guys can please give me a like, a subscribe, and a comment down below. Tell me what you thought about this video. And now we're going to go straight into this. So right now I am on the Meta Investor Relations page and I clicked on the Financials tab. Now when we go on this tab, they give us these quarterly breakdowns. So when earnings actually does drop, and that's going to be very soon here. So when earnings does drop, we are going to get the earnings release, we're going to get the balance sheet and the income statement. Everything else is going to come later. So when I do click on this earnings release, I get to this page right here. And this kind of gives us an idea of what kind of metrics we want to look at. So here we can see that Meta is focused on things such as family, daily active people. Now, when they're talking about this, they're talking about their family of apps. That is including the Facebook app, the Instagram app, the Messengers app, and the WhatsApp. So we're looking at family daily active people, family monthly active people, Facebook daily active users, and Facebook monthly active users. This is talking about their main website. So now that we actually have that information, we could scroll down a little bit more and we see something called CFO Outlook Commentary. Now, this isn't as nice as Microsoft where they broke it all down for us, but they at least gave us some sort of hint. They told us we expect second quarter 2022 total revenue to be in the range of 28 to 30 billion. So this is a number that we could plug and chug and we could compare it to prior year's quarter revenue. So we'll do that later, but right now we're going to look at some other stuff. We're going to go into their quarterly filing. And what I did here was I essentially typed in something like DAU, which is daily active users. And then you can see that that brought me to all these nice little charts right here. So essentially what I did is I got all of these individual little charts right here that is basically worldwide, and I put them into this Excel spreadsheet for us. So here when I go right here, this is referring to their family of apps. So right now, if we're just looking at this chart, let's just take a moment. So this is their daily active people worldwide in billions. Now this is just pretty damn impressive. If you're just looking at this, we're seeing numbers like 2.36 billion, 2.76 billion, 2.87. I mean, that's a lot of people. And I would assume that not all of these are actual people. Maybe some of them are bots, who knows. But regardless, that's still quite a lot. So when we're actually looking at this number, I went ahead, I got all of these numbers, I plugged it into Excel right here, and now I'm looking at a year over year growth pattern. So essentially when I'm looking at Q1 2021, I am comparing it to Q1 2020. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm subtracting this number from that number and then dividing it from this base number right there. So here for Q1 2021, we saw 15.25% year over year growth in daily active people. And from here, you can see that this percentage just continues to dwindle. So we're definitely seeing slower growth in daily active people. Now, one of the arguments is that Facebook has managed to grab so many people that, now they've kind of reached the pinnacle of growth. So when we're looking at numbers like 2.87 billion, this doesn't surprise me. So now we're going to go into monthly active people worldwide, and this is also in billions. So when I'm looking at this year over year, we're looking at 15.38%. This number is also going down, and that makes sense because this is just a monthly version. So you can see that the trend is down in this growth aspect right here. So now we could look at the actual Facebook website, and we could do the same exact thing. Now, keep in mind, these numbers are in millions, I don't know why they couldn't just do everything in billions, but for some reason they wanted to make it difficult for us. So if we're looking at the year over year growth on daily active users for Facebook, I mean, we're seeing some pretty significant numbers here. I mean, it's quite a bit. This is basically like 2 billion. But the year over year growth is looking also pretty cruddy. You know, this number is going down. As you guys can see, we're going from 8.3% down, 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 down. And you can see that the most recent quarter was a 4.37% growth. Now, monthly active users, we could do the same thing. We're looking at 9.6%, and then this is going down. Our most recent quarter was 2.91%. So now we can go into revenue per person. So this is actually a new thing. With the family of apps, they actually gave us this breakdown of revenue. So they didn't do this before. So this is actually a nice piece of information we have here. So what we're focusing on is this bottom numbers, these bottom numbers right here. So if we're just looking Q1 2020, you know, $6.03 average revenue per person, and then we can see right here, this is the quarter that we're comparing. So when we do get all of this information, we always want to compare it to Q2 2021 because that's going to be the year over year comparison. So unfortunately, we don't have any of these estimates. So when that number does drop, that is when we do that comparison. So if we're just looking at the year over year growth of average revenue per person, you know, it was starting off strong. It was 28.52% here in Q1 2021. And then it got even stronger to 37.05%, and then 21.01%, and then we actually went negative. So as you guys can see, in this quarter, we were $9.39. We went to $7.72. So you guys can see that this was actually falling. But then if we're comparing to the last year's quarter, we are actually comparing this to this number right here. So if we're comparing 7.75 to 7.72, then yes, we declined ever so slightly. But it is also important to notice this trend right here, where we did go from 9.39 in the last quarter to 7.72 in the most recent quarter. So that's the family of apps. Now this is Facebook and the Messenger. So if we're looking at the average revenue per user here, I mean, this is a little bit stronger. And that's because WhatsApp doesn't really make them all that much money. So if we're looking right here, you know, we're seeing like pretty high numbers right here, like $10.14 per user, like $11.57. But we can also see that the year over year growth prospects are kind of falling here. So, you know, we started off really strong, 33.38%. Then, you know, going down the quarters, we saw 43.55%. And then this number has just significantly dwindled. The most recent quarter, we're looking at $9.54. And if we're comparing it to the quarter before, then yeah, it's fallen quite a bit. But if we're comparing it to the last year's quarter, then yeah, you know, this number is slightly higher, but not by much, 2.91%. So that's basically all of that. Now we're going to go into the income statement right here. So if we're looking at revenue, you know, we have all these different years right here. And right now, I put in this little year over year changes, and I have that highlighted right here. So as you guys can see, you know, revenue year over year, pretty strong. It's been dwindling. It actually went negative, or it's actually expected to go negative, possibly. So if you do remember that outlook that they gave us, let me go ahead and pull that back up. So right here, they gave us a range. They said 28 billion to the low side, 30 billion to the high side. So when I go right here, I put in a Q2 low for revenue. I also put in a Q2 high for revenue. And we are comparing to Q2 of 2021. So if we're comparing these revenues, you know, to the low side, we could see negative 3.7% in revenue growth. to the high side, we could see 3.17% in revenue growth. Now, this is pretty crappy, and I do believe that a lot of this is already priced in. That is why the PE multiples have significantly shrunk. They've actually gone down by almost 50% or so, just because, the growth prospects just aren't here as much. So let's just take a look at this. I mean, we're clearly going down. So the last quarter we saw 6.64%, and before quarters we were seeing like 20% plus. So now we could go negative. I mean, that would definitely be a bad situation to see negative revenue year over year growth. So let's just go down the line here. Let's look at year over year changes on income from operations. So here we're seeing 93% growth, 107% growth, and then we go to 29.64% growth, and then we actually had negative growth right here. So a lot of this is because of Reality Labs. Reality Labs is losing them money. So as you guys can see, we're seeing negative income from operations. And that really started in Q4 of 2021. And then it carried over to Q1 in 2022. It's likely going to carry over in these next quarters as well, because we are comparing it to these numbers back here, which do not have Reality Labs dragging them down. So now if we're looking at net income year over year changes, we almost basically doubled right here. And now if we're comparing it, it's dwindling quite a bit. We're actually seeing negative growth in this department right here if we're comparing to prior quarters. And like I said, that is also because of Reality Labs. So if we are looking at Reality Labs real quick, let's just go down to this segment. As you guys can see, it didn't exist here. And then, once it started existing, it was actually, oops, I'm looking at the wrong thing. I want to look right here. So it didn't exist right here, right there, and right there. But once it started existing, it's losing money. So losing money right there, losing money right there. And then, now we're seeing revenue kind of dwindle. And then we still have this anchor that's holding us down. That's Reality Labs losing us money. But this is an investment in their future. So you do have to think about it like that. Now, I do want to go into their current trailing 12-month earnings per share. So essentially what I'm doing here is I'm grabbing the last 4 quarters. As you guys can see, I'm summing that up. Now I'm looking at the share price. It's currently 169.03. I am dividing 169.03 by 1323. And that gives us a 12.78 PE multiple. Now that is currently where we stand right now. After earnings, this trailing 12-month earnings per share, that could fall a little bit. And then we're going to have to recalculate PE. Obviously share price is going to fluctuate as well. Maybe it goes up, maybe it goes down. So if this earnings per share does happen to go down, but share price does go up for whatever reason, maybe some of those metrics I mentioned earlier do look a little bit more positive, well then that's going to make PE multiples actually go higher. So it does kind of make it a little bit more risky. So now we're going to go into, over here and we're going to look at historic PE. So if we're kind of looking at historic PE right here, we could see that in the prior quarter it was like 17%. And then before all of that drama, it was around like 25, 27, 30, as you guys can see. So this PE multiple has literally been slashed in half because that growth prospect significantly slowed down. And it's actually looking to go negative year over year, possibly. So let's go ahead. Let's look at the last thing that I want to cover. We're going to look at the technicals. I'm going to take out the moving averages just so you guys can see this a little bit more clear. Now you guys can really see this is where we really took a knife down. That was on that. Basically when we saw those prospects of growth diminish, that is when we saw this massive drop right here. Now that is such a strong move, as you guys can see. Look at the volume behind that. That was massive volume. So, I mean, at this point, it was getting kind of oversold. And then we saw that huge rally. We saw that bounce right there. And now we've kind of just been trading in this channel, as you guys can see. But we also have support on this bottom trend line. And if we're connecting these tops, we're kind of in a falling wedge within a channel. So you guys can see this falling wedge right here. And then you guys can also see this channel right there. Now recently we broke out. But once those Snap earnings came out, we kind of like took a big knife down. So now we're at 169.27 and we fell 7.59% on Friday. So now we're going to introduce the moving averages. Well, as you guys can see, we're shortly above the 50-day moving average. We knifed below that, but we bounced off the 20-day moving average at 167.88. So now we're kind of in a moving average sandwich where, you know, resistance could show up at 177.51. Support is 167.88. So we'll kind of see where this goes, but another area of support could be this trend line right here. So if we do fall, we'll see if we do produce some sort of bounce, maybe right around 161.80 or so. If not, we do have support right around 154.25. Now let's just say this thing totally knives on earnings. Well, I do believe that support could show itself right on this bottom trend line. So possibly like, oh boy, that could be like 140. And if we zoom out, so let's just zoom out a little bit here. We do have this support trend line right here, this longer term support trend line. We produced a bounce right here, right there. And now we're just kind of moving around that, as you guys can see. So we're kind of like debating, hey, do we want to go above this, below this, or maybe we just want to go slightly above and then we'll just kind of hang on, stick to this trend line. We'll see what happens. So we're also below a 200 weekly moving average. We also had this 50 weekly moving average just cut underneath the 100-day weekly moving average. So right now it does look pretty damn bearish. And, you know, basically the entire market doesn't look that great either. So, yeah, that's basically all I have to say about Meta. And when the earnings do drop, that's something that I am going to have to catch. And hopefully I can make another video on that shortly. So, that earnings is going to be on the 27th. So let's see, that's going to be on a Wednesday. So next week is going to be pretty damn busy. We got Microsoft on Tuesday, Meta on Wednesday. I forget when Apple is, but we'll definitely look into those earnings as well. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a great one.